What is a shadow artist? Are you one? If you feel like you're on the sidelines a lot, watching other people go after it, and although you're supporting them, there's something deep inside of you that knows you're called for more, well, there might be something lurking in the shadows. Today I connected with Rivky Gross, who's a somatic and breathwork practitioner, and we're digging into this topic that combines shadow work with creativity. We're about to go deep. A shadow artist can often feel called to create, drawn to create, but they're held back due to perfectionism, fear, self-doubt.
Carl Jung says something like, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
In this conversation, you're going to learn what it means to be a shadow artist.
Shadow artist can turn into depression, which is like the suppression of creativity, life force, sexuality, etc. Envy or comparison.
And some actionable steps on how you can move from the sidelines into your full creative expression.
Our expression matters so much because as we unleash, as we get to the root and start to feel safe with being seen and expressing ourselves in our bodies, we give others permission to do the same.
Shadow artist. Tell me, what does that term mean?
So when I was thinking about shadow artist, I couldn't help think about Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, because she speaks about shadow artist in her book. And I think about the idea of, are you a supporting actor in somebody else's story? Are you a supporting actor in somebody else's life? Sometimes looking at other people and being like, I can do that, but I can do that better than them, or I can do that full stop, but not doing it. A characteristic of a shadow artist might feel like they have a explosion of creative energy inside of them that they either feel self-conscious about or not good enough, or their perfectionist part is bigger than their self-expression part, or they might feel only like a tiny inkling that they actually have some art that they want to create, something they want to put into the world, but they don't even fully know. To their conscious mind, they don't even know that there is an artist living inside of them. This topic is so exciting for me because as I was thinking about this conversation, I'm thinking about combining shadow work with art is really my two loves. And as a recovering shadow artist who is very much an artist that is not in the shadows anymore, and I keep learning the ways in which I still am. It's such a radical experience.
That's when I was listening and they're like, what the F are you talking about? Story grounds things in reality and helps it become tangible. So what is your story experience with being a shadow artist or recovering shadow artist?
Well, I think there's two ways in which my story is expressing itself, or has expressed itself. One is in my work, in the work that I do, which I kind of have been thinking about as the healing arts, because the sessions and the groups and the work that I do in the world as a somatic, subconscious-based practitioner is really art. It's like a dance. If you join one of my retreats, it's very much a dance and deeply artistic. And in that space, I noticed that a few years ago, I was supporting so many others in their healing arts, really noticing people who had gifts or raw talent or energy gifts or gifts at being able to hold space for other people, and asking and hiring them and working with them and cheering them on and telling them what I saw in them, until I realized one day I was like, I think there's something in me here that I'm not expressing. And I'm so happy to be a cheerleader for others, but there was something that was unexpressed in me. And then in art in its raw form, because I am also a painter. And I love creating art with flowers. I love creating art with paint. And this year, my friend asked me if I can make an art piece for her art exhibit or her art exhibition that she was putting on. And I said, no. And she said, are you, she really didn't want to take no for an answer. And I said, okay. and I create this piece that came out of me was so unbelievable
Mhm.
to even myself. And I realized that there is this raging, like, artist lion inside of me that's just wants to express itself far greater ways than like the smaller or more meek ways that I've been expressing it up until then. And like the tiger or the lion has like awakened, and now I just can't put it back in. And yesterday I had this experience where I felt like I had this creative emergency, and I had to go to the store and play with flowers and make this flower arrangement. And I've been creating art for the sake of art in this most fun, exciting way. And I feel like there was this shadow going on that has now come into the light. Now there's so much more space for my life force and my creativity and my expression in this
Mhm.
world.
I think it's interesting that what you perceive, what you notice in the world could be a hint and a reflection towards what is inside of you to do, because we all see the world so differently and notice things and are attuned and drawn to X uniquely. I guess what comes up for me, and I don't remember what Julia Cameron said. It's been a while since I read it, just about the shadow artist. Kind of the difference between like, hey, yo, I literally just want to support photographers. Hey, yo, I really just want to support, it's my calling to support writers. Is there a person who actually that's just legit what they're here to do and they're not a photographer or a writer or whatever? I guess like my question to you is, reflecting on your own experience and the people you've worked with, how do I know like legit there's something I'm running from versus I just enjoy this kind of art?
I think like similar to any question of like why would this healing be for me, or why would this experience be for me, etc. Like any question that we might have about that is like, what are you looking for, and are you getting really honest with yourself? And really the question is, why does it matter? It matters if it matters to you. Like,
Exactly.
is
You
it,
know.
is it
Right.
mattering? And,
Right.
are you feeling a feeling of, are you saying that you're happy, but inside you're feeling this feeling of slowly something eating away at you? Are you feeling a slight depression, which in the way that I
Mm.
define it is a repression or a suppression of some form of your life force energy? Are you feeling some kind of pervasive anxiety? Are you feeling envy? Is there
Um,
is
yeah.
there an envy feeling inside of you? Are you walking through the world comparing yourself? Are you putting other people on pedestals and putting yourself beneath them? Are you walking around the world with a pervasive feeling of unworthiness, or that you have a piece of art inside of you that is not expressing itself? Or are you walking through the world feeling like there's something that you have to give, but and you know what it is, but you're so afraid to,
Yeah.
be seen in some way?
This is why I love that we're kind of merging our worlds together. I love all the tactical kind of how to get your voice, your message out there. I was just on a call earlier with someone. She was like, how do I know I'm ready to work with you? And I'm like, when you're ready to do some shit, like when you're really ready. And some people aren't. But
Yeah.
before we get to that point, there needs to be this not perfection, not like fully healed, whatever that means, but like just this settledness of self and this re- um, resolution within you. And that's why I'm really excited to connect with you, because that's what you do, is you get people to that spot where they're like, I'm ready to be scared and do stuff that scares the shit out of me. And
Yeah.
you mentioned shadow work a minute ago, and I'm curious your perception of like kind of how shadow work comes into this conversation.
Well, let me first explain what is a shadow. A shadow is a shadow aspect is a part of ourselves that isn't fully conscious. So what
Good and bad?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Beyond good and bad. A part of ourselves that isn't fully conscious. It can be the most, it could be our light that's in the shadows, right? It can be
Mm.
our
So shadow's
gifts.
not bad. It's not dark. It's not evil. Shadow
not
just means
not
not
evil at
seen.
all. It's
Okay.
anything that is ruling our life that is unconscious. Carl Jung says something like, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When something isn't conscious, therefore it isn't expressed. And when our shadows aren't uncovered and are unintegrated, they could become something that could potentially hurt ourselves or others.
Yeah.
So, like an unexpressed shadow artist can turn into depression, which is like the suppression of creativity, life force, sexuality, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It can turn into envy or comparison. It can turn into a feeling of like I said before, pervasive unworthiness or perfectionism. A shadow artist can feel it shameful to admit that he or she has something to offer to the world, or that, and their shadow can be so deep, like I said before, that they almost subconsciously don't even know what they have to offer.
Oof,
So,
oof.
in doing shadow work, what we're saying is making the unconscious conscious,
Mm-hmm.
making the unconscious artist inside of ourselves conscious, and really getting to the root of how does a shadow artist get created. And Julia Cameron says that every single artist in their baby artist years, in their young artist years, needs support, needs acknowledgement of the budding baby artist that's inside of them. But what are most children met with? Parental figures who say things like, "Are you sure you want to go into that? That
Right.
sounds
Right.
irresponsible. That
Right.
sounds scary. That sounds..." So what's happening? They're combining their budding artistry, their potential idea, their life force that's like exploding out of them, together with anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's what a shadow artist experiences. It's like a shadow artist experience is like something spilling out of me, and then there's a clamp on top of it. I'll read a quote that she says: between the dream of action and fear of failure, a shadow artist is born. And that's where a shadow artist sometimes lives for the rest of their life. And they can continue to think about art like a cute hobby,
Right.
or treat
Right.
their art like a cute hobby. And to heal, part of the healing process of a shadow artist is to learn to take our art, which is the expression of our heart and our soul and our life force and our self with a
Mm.
capital S, seriously. Because the
Seriously.
antidote to not receiving the support and acknowledgement that we may have needed when, and no shame, like our parents do what they do and they know what they know. And many
Right. Right.
people that are listening to this come from survival, and they're not exactly like in the budding artist stage of their lives. But once we know better, we get to do better.
Come on.
Um,
Come
yeah.
on. You mentioned earlier, there's this, I don't have any acknowledgement. Maybe my shadow is I don't even realize that I am a writer at heart, or I am a singer, or I am a healer, or whatever. So there's that kind of just unawareness that is something that you bring to the table. But then there's this other thing, and you mentioned it earlier, and I saw it this past week. I was facilitating a little workshop thing with like creative content. And dude, almost everybody in that room was like, I know this, I know that, I know this, and these are my ideas, and this and that. And then almost like at the end of it, it kind of trailed off. But I'm still not doing that. I should be doing that. I just haven't done that
Mm.
yet. And you mentioned earlier these people who always are coming to the table. And no shame, dude. I've done this too with all these ideas, but not necessarily implementing. And so I think there's like this other level, this other piece where maybe I realize, yeah, I want to be a content creator. I have that in me and I have all these ideas, but for some reason I am like just completely stuck on taking any action. I know there's like some kind of shadow, something going on there. So hit me with what you got with that.
Totally. And that's why, by the way, I'm so excited for the workshop that we're doing together, because we are such a good fit in this way. You're helping with the tactical aspect of thing, with how to actually implement once the fire is going. But if the fire is not turned on, then there's nothing to cook the food on. So it's like, we're going to fix the electrical, thing, and then the fire gets to turn on, and then all the food gets to be delicious and all the recipes get to be amazing, you know. But it's important to get to the root so that the body can get to be safe to be
Mm.
creative. Being seen, if visibility, if being imperfect, if failing, if our ideas weren't supported, the body will reject that. And even the best mindset shift and the best coaching and the best ideas won't necessarily stick and land. So when we can learn to feel safe on a body level with visibility, with
Yeah. Yeah.
imperfection, with making an impact,
Yeah.
right? What does making
Yeah.
an impact mean? I make an impact positively, and sometimes I can make an impact on someone that doesn't land so well. Can I feel safe being impactful, with being misunderstood?
Being
That
okay with
is
it.
the one of the biggest shadows of one of the biggest unconscious fears. I'm going to interchange the word shadow and unconscious
Yep.
fear. One of
Yep.
the biggest unconscious fears of an artist who is not expressed or not fully expressed is feeling misunderstood. Are people going to pick up what I put down? Are people going to
Mm.
pick up what I put down? It's most people's relational fear. Am I going
Yeah.
to be afraid of being misunderstood? I know that it's been my fear. And when we can move through that, we start making epic, incredible, impactful art. And once we get to that place, Heather, what I've seen for myself, and I can feel it in my bones and my body even as I express it, is like creativity starts to flow naturally. We don't have to push and force so much because because we can't cook food on a stove that doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. You're so much nicer and articulate than I am because you said it a lot better. What I've been telling people lately is they'll say, "Oh, I'm not creative," and I'm like, "No, you're afraid." Like
Mm,
I just come back and you say it a lot nicer because what you're essentially saying is it's not like you're afraid, get over it. It's there's something in your body that's stuck and you need to feel safe and grounded in order for that creativity to flow because it's just
yeah.
complete BS that we aren't creative. I mean, there's creative expression and everything. Why does any of this matter? I guess at the end of the day, like I'm happy, doing my thing, supporting these artists, dabbling here and that. Maybe I like being a shadow artist a little bit. Like, is it that big of a deal to invest this kind of time, energy, intention to pouring into something that I may be looking at as a hobby or a nice to have?
I would have asked and the same question a few years
Hmm.
ago. Even the question, like when I think about the question, I think about the questioner, like where's this
Yeah.
question coming from? Why does it matter? Because art matters, because expression matters, because creating for the sake of creating matters, being in ourselves and in our fullest expression matters, because we matter. Our expression of our divinity, which is to me our expression, like God in form, is our art, is what we create. And when we're creating for the sake of creating, when we're being in art, when we're immersed in art, when we're expressing ourselves, what we're telling ourselves and the world is that we are taking ourselves seriously, is that we are seeing ourselves, it's that we're acknowledging ourselves. And how do we recover reverence in this world that is honestly, I don't want to like get, political or anything like that in this conversation, but in this world that's gone so far from a place that is caring and compassionate and reverent for each and every human being and for human life itself. And
Hmm.
art is the reminder of like the preciousness and the point
Yeah.
of like life itself. It's like expression for the sake of expression, creativity for the sake of creativity, being ourselves for the sake of being ourselves, not only to make a buck or to get to the next place or to get
Yeah.
things done, but to really art matters because we matter. And there's this quote from Marianne Williamson who says that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others the permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So our expression matters so much because as we unleash, as we get to the root and start to feel safe with being seen and expressing ourselves in our bodies, we give others permission to do the same. And what did the shadow artist need as a child? Permission, support, role models, people expressing themselves for the sake of expressing, people living for the sake of living, people not just surviving but thriving, people supporting them in their artist ways. And I just want to say, like, if you're listening to this and you need permission, your art is important. It's one of a kind. It's only yours. It's your unique imprint and expression of the divine inside of this world, and like here to give you the permission that you might need to give yourself permission to express yourself in all the ways that you possibly can.
Amen. And I want to expand, just the term art, and really the thing that's coming up for anybody listening right now is the thing we're talking about. It does not mean
Mm,
literal art, painting, whatever. For me, it's communication.
mm.
I feel like that's my art piece, is storytelling, communicating, and the way that I use words and hopefully, connect with people. That is my art.
Yeah.
And I was just having this conversation yesterday at this conference where, again, back to I love tactics and I love structure and I love figuring out these micro moments of how do you position words to make them more impactful. And there's so many amazing people that I learn from and I study from that teach the tools to become better at your craft. But what we were talking about yesterday, and I've just been on a kick about this lately, about being lit up, where maybe you don't have the right paintbrushes metaphorically or whatever, but we're just so desperate to see lit up artists and communicators and people who have that resonance. And you feel it and you know it when you hear it and you experience it. But it's scary as hell at first because it's making us, to your point, move from our logic and our minds into our body. And when our body hasn't felt safe, it's like, can I really trust this gut of mine?
Mm.
Messy ass question, but let's just get to the heart of it. What does it look like getting safe in that body? And I know that's all of your work and what that does. But I think to myself, is this years of therapy? Is this a shot? Like, what does this actually take to feel comfortable in this Heather Parody skin?
Yeah. I think about it, the question, in two ways. There's top down ways how to feel more safe, and bottom up ways. So when I say top down, I mean like action first, and bottom up ways like experiencing it in your body first.
Mm.
I more work in bottom up ways, right?
And I
But
do
I'll
top
just
bottom, don't I?
but and you more work in top down ways, and I love but I also do both, right? Because let's say something like exposure therapy is a top down way of doing things, right? So that would be something like just do it, right? And that works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So for the people who the just do it doesn't work for, then they need more bottom up ways, which is more really learning to get to really learning to slowly and we've spoken about this, you and I, Heather, but when you move slow, in the work of embodiment, of getting deeper into your body, learning to understand your body's cues, your body's instincts, your body's the language, the unique language that your body speaks to you, in learning how to listen to your heart. It really involves a slowing down, and I like to call it like a dropping in, really getting inside of your body. And there are many ways to do that, right? People get into their bodies through movement. People get into their bodies through meditation. People get into their bodies through somatic therapy. People get into their bodies through dance.
Hmm.
People get into their bodies through shadow work, right? Like subconscious, what's inner child work. And not necessarily does it need to take a few years to become a artist who isn't, a shadow artist, bring the shadow artist into the light. But it does take work, because the shadow, I don't know if this is fully answering your question, and I get what you're
Yeah,
saying about the
go,
messy
go.
question thing, but the shadow artist um, needed support and acknowledgement. So the healing shadow artist needs, what's the antidote? Taking themselves seriously. So I think the most important thing is that whatever you're choosing to do, whatever direction you're choosing to go in, whether it's, signing up for our workshop that we're going to be offering, or exploring somatic experiencing, or doing some subconscious work and digging into your insides, or even learning how to do a certain modality that I offer in my work, which is coding, which is a way to like recode your subconscious mind and be able to experience the world in different ways. Whatever you do, take it seriously, because the antidote to not being taken seriously is taking yourself so seriously. And yeah. And it's like holding that lightly, right? It's like taking yourself seriously in one hand and also
Yeah.
having fun in the other hand. But a
Yeah.
recovering shadow artist needs to be taken seriously.
I love that. And I love the permission that you gave folks there of the self-awareness of knowing if there's some healing that needs to be done, are you more bent towards top to bottom approach, and that's cool, or are you bottom to top approach, and that's cool too. It's we're also uniquely different. Is there anything?
And can I
Yeah,
say one
go.
more thing? Like sometimes
Sure.
people get stuck in both, right? So if you're doing
Mm,
a top down approach and you realize it's not working, it's really good to shift to a bottom up approach. But sometimes people
mm.
also get stuck in a healing spiral where they're like, I'm going to heal this thing, and I'm going to heal this thing, and I'm going to heal this thing, and they use healing as an avoidance of actually doing the
That
thing
could
that
preach.
they're
That could
they're
preach.
desiring to do. So having that self awareness and really radical self honesty, or I call it like ruthless self compassion, can be really helpful in this side of the space.
When is it? This is a little side road, but I'm curious as a bottom to top healer practitioner. Has there ever been a time, or is there ever a time where you have to kind of switch into top to bottom, be like, yo, get your shit together? Like, you know better than this. Or am I off on that? Are you going back into like subconscious again?
I think
I'd be
that
like the yoga teacher that would be like, yeah, you're doing great or whatever. And they say something, I'd be like, come on.
that ruthless compassion is my specific brand of working with clients. It's like really
Ruthless compassion.
it's the most compassion, with also understanding that compassion doesn't mean avoidance of
Yeah.
your light and of
Yeah.
your power and of
Yeah.
what you have to bring into the world. So it's holding both of those things. But Heather, I really think that when the healing happens, and we can't put a timeline on our healing just like we couldn't put a timeline on our pain, right?
Right. Right.
When it happens, it starts to flow naturally. I've seen it for myself. I see it for
Mm.
my clients time and time again. And the more we let go, in my experience, of the timeline, sometimes the faster it takes.
Is there anything else about shadow artist, the shadow artist that we missed or you think is important for this conversation?
Yeah, I have a question for you, which is, I'm so curious to hear about your shadow artist.
Oh boy. For me, it was the online space. I had spent years going to school, and I struggled in school. It wasn't like I was spending years because I was getting multiple doctorates. I spent years in school because I didn't have an education growing up. My education stopped around 6th or 7th grade, and I had to go through developmental classes. I worked my ass off
Wow.
to go to school, get to where I needed to be, and get a master's in counseling because that's what I thought I wanted to do. While I was doing that, I was listening to all these podcasts and I was kind of opening up to the personal development and the healing world. And it was just, it was like this. I can't even explain what it did for me. It was like it's something that's always there and you open the door and you see it for the first time. I'm like, this is what you can do with your life. Like, it saved me in so many ways. And so when I got to the end of my schooling, I had spent years, late nights. We paid for school out of pocket. Me and my husband were a young married couple with a baby. We were not rolling in money at that time. We did not have really a lot. So we were living underneath our means, living in an apartment, paying cash for my school.
Well,
So there was some sacrifice that went into me getting that degree. But when I got it, I remember sitting in a room to get an interview for a therapy job. And I look over and there's a magazine rack, and one of the magazines had Success Magazine, an entrepreneurial magazine, sitting there. And I immediately started crying.
well,
Like in the room about, so I go into the job interview with tears in my eyes. I still get the job, which was crazy. But I knew in my gut, I was just like, God, I don't want to do this. I want to build something on my own. And I want to make media and I want to put out content and I want to make a podcast like these podcasts that changed my life. But I felt so irresponsible. I felt stupid. I felt embarrassed. I felt shame because I had to go to my husband and my young child, which they all sacrificed for me too, to do this one path, and to tell them that I was going to pursue something else that had no guarantee, that did not have a dollar amount. So I ended up turning down 2 job offers that was going to bring in good income to our family, which they deserved after, all that, to go to making nothing and figuring something out at an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment on a laptop. And the shame that came with that too, with all my friends and family, and like, what, you changed your mind, you're going to make a podcast now and you're going to put out content, and what are you doing, how much is that, you know what I mean? It was not easy.
yeah.
That was, I don't know how many years ago that was, and it's taken a long time to figure out what I'm doing here and make something substantial and profitable, but also to internally being proud of what I do and looking people in the eyes and telling them what I do and actually realizing I'm doing it.
Yeah. You are doing it.
I am doing it, girl. I'm doing it. So I have a lot of like empathy for people who are kind of at that transition, because for some reason, embarrassment was the thing I really had to deal with. When you're 20, it seems like you sometimes maybe have more freedom, or you think you did back when you were 20, when you're a little older and maybe you have felt a lot of responsibilities. It's so scary making a transition and taking a bet on something. Yeah, that's my story.
Wow. It invokes so much in me hearing it now. I've heard little bits of your story, but this part I haven't heard. And also knowing where you are now is so emotional to experience. And the way in which you have created over, right, 1,000 podcasts
Well over
and
by now. Yeah.
well
Yep.
over 1,000 podcasts. And
Mm-hmm.
you have wildly supported many businesses into wild success and your own. And I think that's something that I love so much about you is like, I can feel how deeply supportive you are of me and of the people who you support and of your friends. And I think it's because you also do it for yourself.
Amen.
And watching you, even in the past few years, like step more and more deeply into what you want, it really helps us become more valuable supporters for others when we are living our own lives. And that's kind of like you asked me before if there's anything more I want to say. Like, that's what I want to say. Why else does it matter? Because when you are in your fullest expression, it's so much easier for you to give others permission to do the
Permission.
same. There's this Yiddish word fargin, which means like I think to allow permission for others to, in this context, to like allow others permission to blossom, to give them the space, to give them the to desire for them. And when aspects of us are unconsciously fighting that for ourselves, it can be really difficult to be a permission giver and a way shower for others.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never shared this publicly, I don't
A way
think.
shower. Oh, I just want to say that one more thing. A way shower for others.
I need a t-shirt that says way shower.
Yeah.
When I was this was years ago, I think I was a teenager or young adult or whatever. I had this dream. It was a very vivid dream where I was standing in this field and there was a line of people beside me. It was like this weird dream where you're like standing in your body and you can feel it, and then you have an aerial view where you can then see the field and everyone. So I'm standing there and there's this line of people, and it's so weird because in the dream, it's like I could feel myself trying to push out of this line, but it was like we were all magnetically, energetically tied together and our bodies were completely stiff. And so most of the dream we're just I'm just trying to push and fight to get out. And so I'm seeing this from like my own point of view and then this aerial view. And somewhere in the dream, I'm just pushing and pushing. And finally it's like it zooms in on my foot and my foot just barely inches forward. In the moment that that does, it's like the energetic line breaks and we all start running forward and it starts to rain. This dream had such an impact on me. I ended up doing a art piece on it and a picture. I had a whole bunch of friends come out in a field and we recreated it and we made the picture. But it was so it was a message from God for me. I know it was because I remember waking up and just hearing it's like when you break free, other things are broken. The people around you are broken free, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what you've talked about here and what we're sharing with this piece is, it's so easy to look at other people and all this stuff going on. There's so much stimulus, but when you can turn inward and acknowledge what is inside of you to do, and like you said, Rivky, take it seriously,
Yeah.
that is work for others. That is helping the world. That is healing the world.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
your art doesn't need to be loud. And your art doesn't need to make money necessarily. It will and it can and it should
Right.
but it doesn't need to. Your art doesn't need to be loud. Your art needs to be yours. And make art for the sake of art, like not only for visibility, but for enjoyment's sake. That's
Mm-hmm.
where all powerful, impactful art comes from. That's where the art that resonates with others come from. And we can't talk about art without talking about life. It's like creative energy is life force energy. It's the same energy as the energy that makes us feel alive. It's the same energy as source as our sexual and sensual selves. It's when we shut off those parts, we shut off aspects of our life force. And life without like texture and flavor and taste and color and smell is life without like pleasure, life without the
Yeah.
pleasure of it, the and we can get the pleasure of it all can get lost in like the grind,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and hard work and deadlines and dead dreams, and it's like,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
got time for that? And I had a near death experience. I had multiple near death experiences, which is for a different conversation, but I had a near death experience, which what I learned in that experience is that I want to be alive while I'm alive. I
Come
want to
on.
live while I am alive. I
Come
want
on.
to live with my soul activated inside of my body in tandem, moving through life all the way alive, and create, explore, impact, be seen, have fun, be silly, be active, be healthy, allow life to move through me, not stagnancy, right? Because we have this one wild and precious life. And someone might be listening to this and they might say something like, I'm not an artist, I'm not creative. But if you're listening to this, if you clicked on this video, or if you follow me or Heather, or if you listened all the way through until the end of this video, I assure you,
We're sorry to inform you. You are.
I am proud to inform you. and 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 Heather is here with her condolences to inform
Yes.
you that you most definitely,
Definitely.
absolutely are. You are a wildly expressive, artistic soul, and who is a creator, who has in my experience and understanding of the world, who has a piece of God inside of you, has a creator, a source
Come on.
energy inside of you.
Come on.
And I bless you with the ability to activate this fire and to see, and if not, to see what might be under that. So that you can be free to express yourself in this world, free from perhaps judgment, free from creative stagnancy, to create art that impacts others, to create art that impacts yourself, to create art that impacts your children, to live for the sake of living, to do business in new ways, to parent in new ways, to have our school systems oriented in new ways. And it begins with the artists, with the rebels, with the freedom fighters, with the awakened souls in our world.
Listen, we have a retreat we're hosting in a little over a month. It'll be linked up in the show notes and in the comments. If you're listening to this after the fact and you cannot come, make sure you connect with Rivky Gross. I will make sure her Instagram and website are linked down in the show notes. And regardless, you come, you click, you don't, whatever, you listen to this, you never see one of us again. We hope this just freaking encouraged you and blessed your life and set you on fire a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're here to do. Anything else, Rivky, before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you for listening, because if you listened all the way through, you're probably already activated and excited. And I'm so excited.
I am about to hit somebody. Woo.
Whoa. Okay, calm down.
Another conversation.